My son looked me in the eye and said, "Dad, you're too old to understand money," while his wife recorded it to use as evidence I was mentally incompetent. They thought I was half asleep when I signed those farm sale papers. They had no idea I'd been recording everything for 6 weeks. My name is Luke Henderson. At 67, I discovered my own family had spent 8 months planning to steal my farm through forged medical documents and fraudulent conservatorship proceedings. In chess, a pawn always thinks it can checkmate the king until it realizes the opponent has been a grandmaster all along. But here's what they didn't know. I secretly owned the $680,000 mortgage on my daughter-in-law's parents' house. The same house they were about to lose while she tried to steal my property to save them. This story has more reversals than a tornado in wheat country. If you've lived in rural America, you know that family land isn't just property, it's legacy. Drop your county below if you understand what it means when that legacy becomes a target, because what I recorded in the following weeks would expose a criminal network targeting elderly farmers across 3 states. The discovery started at 2:15 in the morning when I heard Catherine whispering into her phone, "We need to handle the old man this week. Dad found out Luke's worth millions, not thousands. If we don't force conservatorship now, we lose everything." I stood at the top of my stairs with Nadia's old iPhone, recording my son's wife plan my destruction. Kansas is a one-party consent state. I learned that during my engineering days documenting safety violations. So I pressed record and captured every word of the conspiracy that would either destroy my family or save dozens of others from the same fate. Nadia would have seen this coming. My wife died 7 years ago from cancer, leaving me with 800 acres of prime farmland and a son I thought I understood. Andrew married Catherine, everyone calls her Cate, about a year after Nadia passed. I was grateful then. My boy seemed lost without his mother, and Cate filled that empty space with her bright smile and real estate expertise. Andrew makes $52,000 a year managing marketing for a grain cooperative. Decent money for our area, but not enough for the lifestyle Cate craved. She'd grown up watching her parents, Douglas and Rita Miller, lose their house when she was 16. Some MLM scheme that went bad. That kind of childhood financial shame never really heals, I suppose. Nadia used to say I was too trusting for my own good. She was right about most things, including the investment advice she gave me 30 years ago. "Luke," she'd tell me, "farming feeds the soul, but real estate feeds the future." So while everyone saw me as just another farmer in flannel shirts and work boots, I quietly built an investment portfolio worth $8.2 million. Nadia made me promise to keep it simple, appear humble, stay grounded, let Andrew make his own way. "Don't spoil the boy," she'd say. "Let him earn his dignity." I kept that promise even when it hurt. Even when Andrew struggled with student loans costing $890 a month. Even when he and Cate bought that little house and stretched their budget thin. I thought I was teaching him self-reliance. I thought I was honoring Nadia's wisdom. What I was actually doing was creating perfect conditions for what came next. Because when people think you're just a simple farmer sitting on valuable land, they start making assumptions about how easy you'll be to manipulate. Cate had been married to Andrew for 4 years, and for the first 2, she played the perfect daughter-in-law, brought me casseroles after Nadia died, helped organize family photos, made Andrew smile again during those dark months when grief threatened to swallow us both. But gradually, her conversations turned to money, property values, development opportunities, the wasted potential of keeping good farmland tied up in crops. I started paying attention when her suggestions became pressure, when family dinners included real estate market analysis, when she began researching conservatorship laws. But Cate didn't know something important about me that would change everything. The pressure campaign started subtle during Christmas dinner. Cate mentioned market opportunities and how land values were peaking. She'd done her homework. Our farm was worth $1.8 million, she announced, for property that was just sitting there growing corn. "Dad," she'd say, using that sweet tone that should have been my first warning, "you're sitting on a gold mine while Andrew and I struggle with basic Lukes. You could sell half the land and still have more than you could spend in 10 lifetimes." Andrew would shift uncomfortably during these conversations, caught between loyalty to me and pressure from his wife. I could see the weight of it in his shoulders, The way he'd avoid my eyes when Cate painted pictures of luxury vacations and financial freedom. The urgency escalated after New Year's. Suddenly, it wasn't just dinner conversation anymore. Cate started bringing documents, real estate analyses, development proposals, investor contacts. She had 90 days, she said. Some development group was interested, but the window was closing fast. "Luke, you're 67 years old," she'd press. She was wrong about my age, but I didn't correct her. "What do you need with all this land? Sell now, invest the money properly, and set up Andrew's future. Set up your grandchildren's future." That last part stung, since Andrew and Cate had been trying for kids for 2 years without success. She knew exactly which emotional buttons to push. Nadia used to warn me about people who mistake kindness for weakness. She'd seen through fake charm faster than I ever could. The breaking point came in March, when Cate cornered me alone in my kitchen. "Dad, you need to trust us on this. We know money, you know farming. Let us handle the business side while you enjoy retirement." The condescension in her voice triggered something. The assumption that I was too simple to understand business. The way she talked about my life's work like it was a burden I needed to shed. I started listening more carefully after that, paying attention to words behind the words. That's when I overheard the phone call that changed everything. Cate thought I was napping when she called her mother from my kitchen phone. "Mom, the farm sale has to happen in the next 60 days or you're going to lose the house," she said. "I don't care what it takes. Dad found out Luke has money hidden in investment companies. Old farmers don't understand business paperwork anyway." "Honey," Rita Miller's voice came through the speaker, "what if he discovers the mortgage situation?" "He won't. Dad handled all that through some company called Heartland Investment. These farm types just sign what their lawyers tell them to sign." My blood went cold. Heartland Investment LLC was my private lending company. For 5 years, I'd been helping families in financial crisis, including Douglas and Rita Miller. Through my business, I'd refinanced their house after Douglas lost money in that MLM scheme. They'd never known I was their actual lender. Cate was planning to steal my farm while I was already quietly saving her parents from foreclosure. But that revelation was just the beginning. I called my attorney, Nathan Rivers, immediately after that recording. We'd known each other since Nadia and I set up our estate planning 15 years ago. Nathan specialized in agricultural law and family trusts. "Luke, I need to check something," Nathan said when I explained what I'd overheard. "What did you say the woman's maiden name was?" "Miller. Douglas and Rita Miller." The silence lasted long enough for my stomach to drop. "Luke, you've been holding a $680,000 mortgage on Douglas and Rita Miller's property for almost 5 years. They refinanced through Heartland Investment at 5.2% when banks were offering 8%. You saved their house after some business failure." The irony hit like a physical blow. Through my investment company, I'd been helping Cate's family avoid foreclosure while she planned to steal my farm. She had no idea that her target was the same person keeping her parents housed. I spent the next week learning everything about digital recording and Kansas consent laws. That old iPhone of Nadia's became my constant companion. Every conversation, every phone call, every family meeting went onto digital storage. Nathan walked me through the legal landscape. Kansas Statute 6101 allows one-party consent recording, he explained. But Luke, if they're planning financial manipulation or fraud, this could become federal. The recordings revealed the scope of Cate's desperation. Phone calls about fast-track sales. Conversations with Andrew about getting Dad declared incompetent if I wouldn't cooperate. Research into conservatorship laws and medical evaluations. But the most damning evidence came during another call I recorded between Cate and someone she called Rebecca. "We need the competency documentation by Friday," Cate said. "The family intervention is scheduled for next week. Make sure the evaluations show clear cognitive decline." "Standard package," the woman replied. "Forged psychiatric assessments, fake medical consultations, manufactured evidence of dementia. Same approach we used in Topeka and Salina." They were discussing systematic fraud against elderly property owners. This wasn't just family greed. It was organized crime. I immediately called Nathan with the recording. "Luke, this is federal territory now," he said grimly. "If Cate is part of a network creating fraudulent medical documents to steal property from elderly victims, That's elder abuse conspiracy across state lines. You need to speak with the FBI. Agent Sarah Coleman specialized in financial crimes against elderly victims. She was younger than I'd expected, probably around Cate's age, with sharp intelligence that reminded me of Nadia. "Mr. Henderson," she said after listening to sample recordings, "what you're describing fits a pattern we've been tracking. There's a network targeting elderly property owners across Kansas and Missouri. They use family pressure, fake medical evaluations, and forged documents." She showed me files on similar cases. Farms stolen through fraudulent conservatorships. Elderly victims declared incompetent based on fake psychiatric evaluations. Millions in assets transferred to criminals posing as concerned family members. "If your daughter-in-law is connected to this network, we need to know how deep it goes," Agent Coleman said. "Would you be willing to help us gather evidence?" I thought about Nadia, about the values she'd taught me about protecting vulnerable people, about justice served quietly but completely. What would I need to do? Agent Coleman explained they wanted me to continue recording conversations while they investigated the broader network. They'd provide technical support and legal protection, but they also warned me the situation was more dangerous than simple family fraud. "These people have targeted dozens of families, Mr. Henderson. They've stolen millions in assets. If they realize you're documenting their activities, you could become a target for more serious crimes." But I was already a target. The question was whether I'd be a victim or someone who helped stop a criminal enterprise. Nadia would have wanted me to protect other families from what mine was experiencing. 24 hours later, Agent Coleman called with urgent news that would change everything I thought I understood about my son's role in this conspiracy. Beat 4, Discovery, 900 words. "Mr. Henderson, we intercepted communications between your daughter-in-law and her network," Agent Coleman said. "She's not just a recruit. She's been actively training other family members to target elderly relatives, and there's something else you need to know about Andrew's involvement." My heart sank. "What about Andrew?" "He's been in contact with us for 3 weeks," she said. "He came forward after your first conversation with my office. Mr. Henderson, your son has been helping us gather evidence." The relief was overwhelming, followed immediately by confusion. "But I heard him supporting her plans." "Because we asked him to," Agent Coleman explained. "Andrew discovered documents in your home office months ago. Heartland Investment papers that revealed your business activities. When he confronted Cate about researching your assets, she recruited him into what she claimed was helping the family access hidden money. Andrew had been caught between loyalty to his wife and growing suspicion about her methods. When she started talking about medical evaluations and competency hearings, he'd realized something was seriously wrong. Your son contacted a legal aid hotline about elder abuse," Agent Coleman continued. "They referred him to us. He's been wearing recording equipment for 3 weeks, documenting conversations about the broader criminal network. For the past month, while I thought Andrew was betraying me, he'd actually been working undercover to protect me and gather evidence against the fraud ring." Agent Coleman arranged a meeting at Nathan's office where Andrew could explain his role directly. "Dad," my son said, looking exhausted and older than his 36 years, "I found the Heartland investment documents when I was helping you organize Mom's papers. I didn't understand what they meant, but Cate immediately knew they represented serious money." "When did you realize she was planning something criminal?" "When she started talking about having you declared incompetent," Andrew said. "She showed me fake medical evaluations with your forged signature. That's when I knew this wasn't about helping family. It was about stealing from you. The fake documents were sophisticated. Fraudulent psychiatric assessments claiming I suffered from early dementia. Forged medical consent forms. A paper trail designed to convince courts I couldn't manage my own affairs. The FBI needed someone inside Cate's operation to identify other victims," Andrew continued. She'd been bragging about successful cases in other counties. Elderly farmers who'd been forced to sell property after family members had them declared incompetent. Agent Coleman showed me files on the broader network. 17 families across 3 states had lost property through similar schemes. Always elderly rural landowners. Always family member recruiters who identified targets. Always fake medical professionals providing fraudulent competency evaluations. Your case became our way to infiltrate the network," she explained. But we needed evidence of interstate criminal activity to prosecute at federal level. That meant documenting conversations about victims in other states. The plan was elaborate. I would continue appearing vulnerable while recording conversations with Cate. Andrew would maintain his cover as a cooperative family member while gathering intelligence about other ongoing operations. Agent Coleman's team would monitor all communications and prepare to arrest network members simultaneously across multiple states. But the operation required me to appear increasingly frail and susceptible to manipulation. I'd need to act confused during conversations, make statements that could be interpreted as cognitive decline, give Cate confidence that her fraud was working. It's essentially undercover work, Agent Coleman warned. If Cate realizes you're acting, or if she discovers Andrew's cooperation with us, the entire network might disappear before we can protect other victims. Nathan reviewed the legal implications. Luke, you'd be working as a confidential informant in a federal investigation. That provides certain protections, but it also involves risks. If this network is as extensive as the FBI believes, the people involved might become dangerous when exposed. I thought about Nadia again. About her commitment to helping others, even when it required personal sacrifice. About the values she'd want me to demonstrate in crisis. How many other families are currently at risk? At least 12 active cases across Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma, Agent Coleman said. Elderly property owners who are being pressured by family members connected to this network. If we can't document federal crimes and arrest the leaders, those families will lose everything. The weight of responsibility was enormous. My personal family drama had become the key to protecting dozens of other families from systematic theft. There's one more thing, Andrew said quietly. Cate doesn't know that I know about the Miller family mortgage situation. She's been telling her parents that she can save their house by accessing your hidden assets. They think she's a hero trying to help them while you're selfishly hoarding money. So Douglas and Rita Miller had no idea their daughter was planning federal crimes to steal property from the same person who'd saved their house 5 years earlier. They thought I was the villain in a story where I was actually their rescuer. When do we start? I asked. Agent Coleman smiled grimly. We start tomorrow, because Cate just scheduled what she's calling a family intervention for this weekend. The confrontation happened on a Saturday afternoon in my living room. Cate arrived with her briefcase of fraudulent documents, and a confidence that should have warned me she'd moved far beyond simple family pressure. Luke, she began, Andrew and I have been talking with professionals about your situation. We're concerned about your decision-making and your ability to manage complex financial affairs. I let them present their case, knowing every word was being recorded by multiple devices. Hidden cameras were legal in my own home, and FBI surveillance equipment captured everything. We've consulted with elder care specialists, Cate continued, pulling out the fake medical evaluations. These professionals have assessed your cognitive function during our normal family conversations. They're concerned about your capacity to make major financial decisions. Andrew played his role perfectly, appearing supportive while actually gathering evidence. Dad, we just want what's best for you and for the family. The fraudulent documents were expertly crafted. Psychiatric evaluations claiming dementia, forged signatures on medical consent forms, fake doctor credentials that would fool anyone who didn't research them carefully. Dr. Rebecca Martinez conducted extensive evaluations, Cate explained, showing me papers covered with official-looking letterheads and stamp. She specializes in cognitive assessment for elderly patients who might not recognize their own limitations. When did I meet with Dr. Martinez? I asked, though Nathan had already verified that Dr. Rebecca Martinez had died 3 years ago. Last month, Cate said smoothly. You might not remember clearly, but she spent considerable time evaluating your mental state during family conversations. Interesting, I replied carefully, because Dr. Martinez has been dead for 3 years. The silence in the room was electric. Andrew went pale, though he already knew about the fake documents. Cate's composure cracked just enough for me to see calculation behind her concerned expression. Dad, you must be confused about the timeline. She recovered quickly. These are legitimate medical professionals documenting real concerns about your cognitive function. That's when I revealed the first major surprise. Agent Coleman, I called toward the kitchen. Would you mind joining us? FBI agent Sarah Coleman entered my living room with her badge displayed and recording equipment visible. Mrs. Henderson, I'm Agent Coleman with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This conversation is being recorded as part of an ongoing investigation into elder financial fraud. Cate's face went white. Andrew maintained his cover, acting shocked, even though he'd helped plan this moment. The documents you've presented contain forged signatures and references to deceased medical professionals, Agent Coleman continued. That constitutes federal fraud. Mr. Henderson has been cooperating with our investigation for several weeks. This is insane, Cate exploded. I'm trying to protect this family's financial future while Luke hoards money like a miser. My parents are about to lose their house while he sits on millions. That's when I played my second card. About your parents' house, Cate, I said quietly, pulling out the Heartland investment documents Nathan had prepared. Let's discuss Douglas and Rita Miller, 247 Oak Street, Topeka. $680,000 mortgage at 5.2% interest, refinanced in 2019 through Heartland Investment LLC. She stared at the papers, not understanding what she was seeing. I own your parents' mortgage, I continued. For 5 years I've been the private lender keeping your family from foreclosure. Through my investment company, I helped your father refinance after his MLM losses. Every payment they've made has been to me. The revelation destroyed her last pretense of moral authority. She'd spent months trying to steal property from the same person who'd saved her family's house. You knew this whole time? She screamed. You knew about my parents' problems and said nothing? I said nothing because anonymous help is how your mother and I always approach charity, I replied. But you've been planning to steal my farm while I was already supporting your family. Agent Coleman stepped forward. Mrs. Henderson, you're admitting to attempted theft from the person who holds your family's mortgage. That demonstrates clear financial motive for fraud. But Cate wasn't finished. Her desperation transformed into something ugly and dangerous. Fine, she snarled. You want to destroy this family over money? I'll make sure everyone pays. I have connections who know about your real assets now, people who can make your life very difficult. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you, she said. This network doesn't just disappear because one operation gets exposed. We know about Andrew. We know about your business. We know where you're vulnerable. Agent Coleman was writing rapidly, documenting threats and admissions of criminal network involvement. But I had one more surprise for Cate. There's something else you should know, I said. Andrew has been working with the FBI for 3 weeks. Every conversation you've had with him about other victims, every detail you've shared about forged documents, every plan you've discussed, he's been recording it all. The final destruction of her worldview was complete. The person she'd trusted most had been gathering evidence against her criminal activities. That's impossible, she whispered. Andrew finally broke his cover. Cate, I've been recording conversations since you showed me the fake medical documents. When Agent Coleman explained how many families were being targeted, I couldn't let it continue. As handcuffs clicked onto Cate's wrists, she made one last desperate attempt at manipulation. Andrew, this is your choice. Side with him and watch my family lose everything, or fight for us and our future? My son looked at his wife being arrested for federal crimes. Cate, you forged medical documents and tried to steal Dad's farm. How is any of this fighting for our future? But she had one final card to play, a revelation that would test everything Andrew and I had rebuilt. You think Andrew is innocent? Cate said as Agent Coleman led her toward the door. Ask him about the bank records he copied from your office. Ask him about the meetings with property developers. Ask him how many times he researched conservatorship laws before he suddenly developed a conscience. Agent Coleman stopped. Mrs. Henderson, if you have information about additional criminal activities, now is the time to share it. Andrew knew about the investment company for 8 months, Cate continued. He brought me the Heartland investment documents. He researched your portfolio. The Gentle Family Pressure Campaign was his idea because he said direct confrontation would make you suspicious. My son's face crumpled. Dad, He found your office files when you asked him to help organize Mom's papers, Cate pressed on. We researched your assets together. We planned the timing of conversations to maximize pressure. Andrew identified which of your behaviors could be interpreted as cognitive decline. The betrayal was deeper than I'd realized. My son hadn't just been manipulated. He'd been an active participant from the beginning. Andrew helped plan the medical evaluations too, she added. He told me when you were most vulnerable, what topics upset you, how to present the financial arguments most effectively. Agent Coleman looked at Andrew with new suspicion. Is this accurate? Yes, Andrew said quietly. But Agent Coleman, I came to you when I realized Cate was planning to forge documents and commit actual crimes. I cooperated with the investigation for 3 weeks. After 8 months of planning theft, Cate shot back. He only developed ethics when he realized he might face federal charges. The room felt like it was collapsing around us. Andrew had helped research my assets, had provided intelligence for Cate's manipulation campaign, had participated in planning what amounted to financial elder abuse. Andrew, I said carefully, is it true you found the Heartland Investment documents 8 months ago? Yes. And you shared them with Cate without talking to me first? Yes. And you helped plan the pressure campaign to force me to sell the farm? He looked at the floor. Yes. Agent Coleman's expression had hardened. Mr. Henderson, participating in the initial planning of financial elder abuse is still criminal activity, even if you later cooperated with our investigation. But Nathan stepped forward with legal clarity. Agent Coleman, there's an important distinction here. Andrew's initial actions, researching family assets and applying family pressure for financial decisions, are not federal crimes. When Cate escalated to document forgery and fraud, Andrew chose to contact authorities rather than participate in actual criminal activity. The question, Agent Coleman said, is whether Andrew's cooperation was genuine conscience or just self-preservation when crimes became obvious. Cate laughed bitterly. Ask him about the property developers, Agent Coleman. Ask him about the meetings he attended to discuss subdivision plans for the farm. Ask him how much commission he was promised for helping arrange the sale. My heart sank further. Andrew, you met with developers? Twice, he admitted. Cate arranged meetings to discuss what we could do with the land after we convinced you to sell. And the commission? They offered me 15% of their development profit if I helped facilitate the purchase. Financial incentive. Not just family pressure or wife manipulation, but actual monetary compensation for helping steal my property. Agent Coleman shook her head. Mr. Henderson, that changes the nature of your cooperation with our investigation. No, it doesn't, Andrew said firmly. Yes, I was involved in the early planning. Yes, I made terrible decisions based on greed and pressure from Cate. But when I realized she was planning document forgery and systematic fraud against other families, I chose to stop it. After 8 months of planning theft, Cate repeated. After realizing the difference between family financial pressure and criminal fraud, Andrew corrected. Dad, I was wrong about almost everything. I was greedy, I was disloyal, I was manipulated by Cate's desperation about her parents. But I wasn't willing to let other families get hurt. The pain in his voice was real. The shame was genuine. But so was the evidence of his extended participation in planning to steal my farm. Agent Coleman, I said slowly, what does this mean for Andrew legally? It means his cooperation with our investigation might be viewed more skeptically by prosecutors, she replied. It means his motives for helping us need closer examination. Cate smiled triumphantly. It means your precious son was planning to steal from you for most of a year, before he suddenly discovered ethics. And Luke, it means that when you die, Andrew still inherits everything anyway. He just decided cooperation with the FBI was a safer path to your money than forging documents. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Had Andrew's cooperation been genuine conscience or calculated self-preservation? There's only one way to find out, I said quietly. I turned to Nathan. I want to change my will, immediately. Before Andrew inherits anything, I want conditions that prove his motives for cooperation were genuine. Dad, you don't need to... Yes, I do, I interrupted. If your help with the FBI investigation was about protecting other families rather than protecting yourself, you'll agree to conditions that prove it. Agent Coleman was listening carefully. What kind of conditions? Andrew gets access to family assets only after completing 2 years of demonstrated ethical behavior. Community service working with elder abuse victims, financial counseling to address the greed that made him vulnerable to Cate's manipulation, and testimony in court against everyone involved in this criminal network, regardless of personal cost. And if he refuses these conditions, then everything goes to charity, and Andrew gets proof that his cooperation was about self-interest rather than justice. My son looked at me with tears in his eyes. Dad, I'll do whatever you think is right. But as Agent Coleman led Cate away in handcuffs, she called back one final threat that chilled my blood. Luke, you have no idea how deep this network goes. Arresting me won't stop what's already in motion. 3 days later, Agent Coleman called with news that validated Cate's threats and changed everything about my safety. Mr. Henderson, we need to move quickly, she said. Our investigation of Mrs. Henderson's communications revealed she was part of a sophisticated criminal enterprise spanning multiple states. She wasn't just stealing from you. She was recruiting other family members to target their elderly relatives. The network was larger and more dangerous than anyone had realized. Cate had been training daughters-in-law, sons, and grandchildren across Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma to identify elderly family members with valuable assets and systematically steal their property through fraudulent medical evaluations and legal manipulation. How many victims are we talking about? 43 active cases we've identified so far, Agent Coleman said grimly. The network has been operating for 8 years. They've successfully stolen property in approximately 60% of their cases. The scope was staggering. Dozens of families destroyed, millions of dollars in stolen assets. And now that law enforcement was involved, the remaining network members were accelerating their timeline to complete ongoing thefts before investigations could stop them. Mrs. Henderson sent communications to 12 active operations warning them about federal investigation, Agent Coleman continued. Those families are now at immediate risk of having assets stolen before we can intervene. The moral weight was crushing. My family's drama had inadvertently triggered a crisis that put other elderly victims in immediate danger. What do you need from me? We need you to help identify other victims by participating in a controlled operation, she said. We want you to contact Mrs. Henderson in jail and offer a deal, reduce charges in exchange for information about other targets. But the conversation would be recorded, and you'd essentially be working as an undercover federal informant. The risks were significant. If Cate realized I was gathering evidence, she might retaliate by ensuring other families lost their property out of spite. But if I refused to help, those same families would lose everything anyway, as the network rushed to complete thefts. Nathan reviewed the legal implications. Luke, working as a federal informant provides certain protections, but it also makes you a permanent target for retaliation. This criminal network now knows your identity and capabilities. Even after prosecutions are complete, you might face ongoing threats. Andrew had been struggling with his own reckoning. His cooperation with the FBI investigation was genuine, but the months of planning theft had shattered something fundamental between us. Trust, once broken, doesn't rebuild easily. Dad, he said during one of our painful conversations, I understand if you can't forgive me. I understand if you don't want me involved in family decisions anymore. But please don't let my mistakes stop you from helping other families. It's not about forgiveness, I said. It's about understanding what drove you to participate in planning theft from your own father for 8 months. Greed, he said simply. Cate convinced me that you were hoarding money while family members struggled. She made it seem like we were correcting an injustice rather than committing one. But you researched conservatorship laws. You met with developers. You planned ways to have me declared incompetent. Yes, he admitted, and I have to live with that knowledge forever. Dad, I can't undo the choices I made, but I can help prevent other families from going through what we've experienced. Agent Coleman arranged for me to visit Cate in federal detention. The conversation would be recorded, and I would attempt to extract information about other victims and network operations. The county jail was smaller and more depressing than I'd expected. Cate looked older, defeated, wearing an orange jumpsuit that made her appear younger and more vulnerable than the criminal she'd become. Luke, she said when I sat across from her in the visitation room, I suppose you're here to gloat. I'm here to offer you a chance to do something right, I said. The FBI wire equipment was invisible under my shirt. Every word would be analyzed for evidence about other crimes and victims. Right? She laughed bitterly. You destroyed my family. My parents are going to lose their house because you refused to help when you had the resources. Cate, I've been helping your parents for 5 years through Heartland Investment. They're not losing their house. I restructured their mortgage with affordable payments. They're financially secure. The news seemed to deflate her remaining defiance. But 12 other families are about to lose everything because you warned your criminal network about federal investigation, I continued. Those families have 48 hours before their property gets stolen by people you recruited and trained. What do you want from me? Names, locations, target families, methods being used, everything you know about ongoing operations. In exchange for what? Agent Coleman is authorized to recommend reduced charges if you provide information that saves other families, I said. Cooperation versus obstruction makes a significant difference in federal sentencing. Cate was quiet for a long time, considering her options. There's something you don't understand about this network, Luke, she finally said. It's not just about stealing property. It's about correcting what we see as systematic injustice. What injustice? Elderly people hoarding wealth while their children and grandchildren struggle with student loans, medical debt, housing costs, she said. The network identified elderly landowners and property holders who could help family members but chose not to. The twisted logic was breathtaking. They'd convinced themselves that theft was actually justice, that stealing from elderly family members was correcting generational selfishness. So you decided to steal from people who worked their entire lives to build assets? We decided to accelerate inheritance for people who needed help immediately rather than waiting for natural death, she corrected. Most of our targets were elderly landowners with minimal remaining life expectancy and significant unused assets. She was describing systematic targeting of elderly victims based on perceived vulnerability and asset value, a criminal enterprise disguised as family financial planning. Give me the names of families currently being targeted, I pressed. Cate looked at me with something that might have been respect, mixed with hatred. If I provide that information, I'll be testifying against people who trusted me, she said. People who are facing the same financial pressures that drove me to this. People who are planning to steal property from their own elderly family members. People who are trying to access resources that could change their lives. Even in federal detention, facing years in prison, she still couldn't acknowledge that theft is theft regardless of motivation. But she was facing a choice. Cooperation that might save other families, or obstruction that would ensure maximum punishment, while other victims lost everything. I'll give you 48 hours to decide, I said, standing to leave. As I walked toward the exit, Cate called out one final statement that would haunt everything that followed. Luke, if you think this ends with arrests, you're wrong. The financial pressures that created this network haven't changed. 2 days later, Cate agreed to cooperate. The information she provided led to the largest elder fraud investigation in Kansas history and changed how I understood my responsibility to other families facing similar betrayal. 12 families across 3 states are in immediate danger, Agent Coleman explained after reviewing Cate's intelligence. Property transfers are scheduled for this week in 6 cases. We have 48 hours to coordinate arrests and asset freezes across multiple jurisdictions. The operation required federal agents in Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma to move simultaneously. If criminals in one location realized investigations were underway, they could warn accomplices in other states. Cate had provided detailed information about methods, targets, and timeline. Elderly farmers near Hutchinson, whose grandson was planning conservatorship fraud, a widow in Salina facing forged medical documents from her daughter-in-law, a retired banker in Topeka, whose nephew had hired fake psychiatric evaluators. Each case followed the same pattern. Family members identifying elderly relatives with valuable assets, systematically undermining their confidence and independence, then using fraudulent medical evaluations to gain legal control over property and finances. Your case became the key that unlocked everything, Agent Coleman said. Mrs. Henderson's cooperation is providing evidence for prosecutions that will shut down this entire network. But the investigation also revealed how my own secrecy about family assets had created conditions that made Andrew vulnerable to Cate's recruitment. Elderly parents who hide wealth from adult children sometimes inadvertently create resentment and desperation that criminals can exploit. Andrew had been attending counseling sessions with a therapist who specialized in family financial trauma. Dad, I'm learning that my participation wasn't just about greed.
he told me during one of our careful conversations. It was about feeling excluded from family financial decisions and resentful that you and Mom had resources you never shared. We thought we were teaching you independence. You were. But you were also teaching me that I couldn't be trusted with information about family resources. When Cate showed me evidence of hidden money, it felt like confirmation that you'd been lying to me for years. The therapy sessions were helping both of us understand how family financial secrecy can create vulnerabilities that criminals exploit. Adult children who don't understand family assets sometimes make poor decisions based on incomplete information. I should have told you about Heartland Investment years ago, I admitted.
I should have explained how your mother and I built wealth and what our plans were for inheritance. And I should have talked to you directly instead of letting Cate convince me that family financial pressure was acceptable, Andrew replied. Agent Coleman called with updates about the coordinated arrests. 17 network members in custody across 3 states, she reported. 6 property transfers stopped before completion. 11 families protected from immediate theft. The scope of prevented damage was enormous. Millions of dollars in assets that would have been stolen remained with their rightful owners. Elderly victims who would have lost their homes and life savings were protected. But the investigation also revealed troubling information about how extensively criminals had researched my family's situation. Mr. Henderson, the network had detailed files on your investment portfolio, your property holdings, and your family relationships, Agent Coleman explained. They identified you as a high-value target months before Mrs. Henderson married your son. The marriage itself might have been part of a long-term criminal plan. Cate's relationship with Andrew might have been strategically developed to gain access to family assets. Are you saying Cate targeted Andrew specifically because of family wealth? We're saying the timeline suggests she researched your family's financial situation before pursuing a romantic relationship with your son, Agent Coleman replied carefully. Whether genuine feelings developed later, we can't determine. The possibility that Andrew's marriage had been a criminal conspiracy from the beginning was devastating. My son had been manipulated not just about money, but potentially about love itself. Nathan helped me understand the legal implications of the revelations. Luke, this information affects how courts will view Andrew's participation in the planning stages. If he was a victim of systematic manipulation rather than a willing conspirator, that changes the legal calculations. But it also raised painful questions about Andrew's judgment and my responsibility for protecting him from predators I should have recognized. The final phase of the investigation would require testimony from both Andrew and me about the network's methods and victims. We would help ensure that justice was served while rebuilding trust that had been shattered by months of deception. The quiet millionaire's revenge was becoming something larger, a systematic effort to protect other families from the criminal network that had targeted mine. The trials began 6 months later. 17 defendants across 3 states faced federal charges for conspiracy to commit elder fraud, wire fraud, and racketeering. Cate's cooperation led to a plea agreement with an 8-year sentence, while network leaders faced decades in federal prison. Andrew testified about the recruitment methods, psychological manipulation, and systematic targeting that made him vulnerable to criminal pressure. His cooperation was genuine, and prosecutors acknowledged his role as both participant and victim. Your Honor, Andrew said during his testimony, I want other families to understand how criminals exploit family financial secrecy and adult children's resentment about being excluded from estate planning decisions. The trials revealed that the network had targeted 47 families over 8 years, successfully stealing assets from 29 elderly victims. The total financial damage exceeded $12 million in stolen property, forged documents, and fraudulent legal fees. But the legal resolution was only part of rebuilding our family's foundation. Nathan helped me restructure my estate planning to address the vulnerabilities that had made us targets. Luke, transparency about family assets is crucial for protecting against future manipulation, he explained. Adult children who understand family wealth and inheritance plans are less susceptible to criminal recruitment. I established the Nadia Henderson Foundation for Agricultural Education with a $2 million endowment from the farm sale to Douglas County. The remaining assets from my investment portfolio would fund scholarships for young farmers and financial assistance for families facing agricultural hardships. Andrew completed his community service working with elder abuse victims and enrolled in agricultural law school. Dad, if I'm going to inherit responsibility for family assets someday, I want to understand how to protect other families from what almost happened to us. Nadia would have been proud of how our family's crisis became a foundation for helping others. Douglas and Rita Miller kept their house through the restructured Heartland Investment mortgage. I forgave the remaining balance as part of settling their family's financial crisis. They never learned I was their lender, and they don't need to know. Some help should remain anonymous. The Foundation's Legal Aid Clinic provides free consultations for elderly property owners facing family pressure or suspected fraud. We've helped 12 families identify manipulation attempts and develop protective legal strategies. Agent Coleman invited me to speak at law enforcement conferences about recognizing and preventing elder financial abuse. Mr. Henderson, your case demonstrates how family financial secrecy creates vulnerabilities that organized criminals exploit systematically. The quiet farmer became a national advocate for elderly financial protection and family estate planning transparency. Andrew visits every Sunday now. We talk about everything: money, responsibility, trust, the future. The secrets that nearly destroyed us became the foundation for honest communication about family values and financial stewardship. Dad, I understand now why you and Mom were careful about money, he said during one of our conversations. But I also understand how secrecy can backfire when adult children feel excluded from family financial reality. We should have trusted you with more information earlier, I acknowledged. We should have prepared you to recognize and resist financial manipulation. The most important lesson wasn't about money or criminals or legal protection. It was about family communication and the importance of transparent relationships built on trust rather than secrecy. Sometimes I think about what Nadia would say about how everything turned out. She'd approve of the Foundation's work helping farm families. She'd be proud of Andrew's commitment to protecting other elderly victims. She'd appreciate that justice was served quietly but completely. But she'd also remind me that the best revenge isn't punishment, it's prevention. It's making sure other families don't experience the betrayal and manipulation that almost destroyed ours. The farm is gone, sold to the county for agricultural research. The family crisis is resolved through legal consequences and therapeutic healing. The criminal network is dismantled through federal prosecution and systematic prevention. What remains is a foundation dedicated to protecting vulnerable families, a son who learned difficult lessons about greed and manipulation, and a father who discovered that his greatest strength wasn't hidden wealth, it was the courage to seek justice and protect others. Nadia's favorite saying was, "Plant good seeds, tend them carefully, and trust the harvest." It took me 67 years and a criminal conspiracy to understand what she meant. Family wealth isn't about money hidden in investment accounts. It's about values shared openly, trust built carefully, and responsibility accepted willingly by each generation. The Quiet Millionaire's revenge became something better than revenge, a systematic effort to protect other families from financial predators and ensure that family assets serve family values rather than destroying them. If this story reminds you of manipulation in your own family, share your county in the comments, because protecting family sometimes means protecting them from each other, and justice sometimes requires ordinary people to make extraordinary choices about right and wrong. The Foundation continues Nadia's legacy of quiet service to families in crisis. The Legal Aid Clinic protects elderly property owners from systematic fraud, and somewhere in Kansas, the values Nadia taught me live on in work that turns family betrayal into family protection for others. That's the real revenge of the Quiet Millionaire, ensuring the story ends with more families protected than families destroyed. 2 years later, I received a letter that brought everything full circle. "Mr. Henderson," it began, "my name is Jennifer Walsh. My grandmother was one of the elderly victims your Foundation's legal clinic helped protect from family financial fraud last year. I wanted you to know that your work saved our family from losing everything to criminals who were pretending to help us." The Nadia Henderson Foundation had grown beyond my original vision. Working with law enforcement agencies across 5 states, we'd developed early warning systems for identifying elder financial abuse and family asset manipulation. Our legal clinic had protected 43 families from systematic fraud, Andrew graduated from agricultural law school and joined Nathan Rivers' practice, specializing in elder protection and family estate planning. Dad, every client I help understand their family's financial situation is a family that won't be vulnerable to the kind of manipulation Cate used on us. The Foundation's educational programs taught family financial communication skills that prevented the secrecy and resentment criminals exploit. Transparent estate planning, regular family meetings about assets and inheritance, adult children who understand family wealth and responsibility. We break the cycle, Andrew explained to families attending our workshops, by eliminating the information gaps and emotional vulnerabilities that make elderly parents and adult children targets for financial predators. Agent Coleman became a consultant for our prevention programs. The Henderson case taught us that family financial secrecy creates more risk than family financial transparency, she said. Criminals specifically target families where parents and adult children don't communicate openly about money. I moved to a smaller house near Nathan's office, but kept working with families facing financial manipulation. The Quiet Farmer had become a national resource for preventing elder abuse through improved family communication. Sometimes justice sounds like handcuffs clicking on criminals. Sometimes it sounds like families having honest conversations about money and inheritance. Sometimes it sounds like an elderly farmer learning to trust again, carefully and completely, with clear boundaries and open hearts. Nadia's values lived on through work that turned our family's crisis into protection for other families. Plant good seeds, tend them carefully, trust the harvest. The Foundation established a scholarship program for young people studying agricultural law, elder advocacy, and family counseling. Nadia would have loved seeing our crisis transformed into educational opportunities for future protectors. Andrew married someone new 2 years later, a legal aid attorney who understood the importance of family financial transparency and ethical decision-making. They named their first daughter Nadia, carrying forward values of service and protection. I walked my granddaughter down the aisle at Andrew's wedding, grateful that family trust had been rebuilt through honest work and shared commitment to protecting others. The Quiet Millionaire's revenge wasn't revenge at all. It was justice served through legal consequences, healing accomplished through honest communication, and prevention achieved through systematic protection of vulnerable families. If this story helped you understand manipulation in your own family, or if you recognize signs of financial pressure against elderly relatives, remember, transparency prevents exploitation, communication builds protection, and sometimes the greatest strength is asking for help before crisis becomes criminal. The Foundation continues, the family heals, the work grows. Somewhere in Kansas, Nadia's legacy lives on in every family protected from the financial predators who almost destroyed ours. That's how the Quiet Millionaire's story really ends. Not with revenge against those who hurt us, but with protection for those who need our help.